Hi folks, and welcome to our third reflection of this week. And as you know, we've been using the sunflower as our inspiration. Now the sunflower is a very beautiful plant, but it's a tough wee cookie. It's quite resilient. Of course it has to be because it originated on the Great Plains of North America. And given the variables of climate there, you have to be a tough and resilient plant to thrive. In fact, even to survive. I understand Kansas is the sunflower state. So of course that's an indication of the type of land that the sunflower originated in. It can thrive in a variety of soils, even poor soil, and it has a fair measure of resistance to drought because it has a large and extensive root system. Something I forgot to mention yesterday, and that would have fitted in with the theme yesterday. Now, like many of you, I suppose, when you heard about the sunflower, you maybe got on to the online to see what was there. Of course, there's masses of information about sunflowers, and I can recommend you type that in and see what's there. But there was one section I came across that was full of posters of a picture of a sunflower and then some statement or saying to go with it. And one that caught my eye was, grow through what you go through. Grow through what you go through. And that saying was accompanied with a picture of a sunflower. And that fits in rather well with the teaching in the New Testament. We saw when we were looking at the Psalms, especially Psalm 23, that God is the Good Shepherd who accompanies us on the pilgrimage of life. And there are dark valleys that the sheep have to go through, but the shepherd is with them. And I made the point then that there were no shortcuts. On the journey to the high ground, the sheep just have to go through these difficult times, but the shepherd accompanies them every step of the way. So too for us, there are no shortcuts. Often life has its dark valleys. And at the moment in this lockdown, during this pandemic, it's a mixture of good and bad. Some of us have enjoyed the quieter pace of life in lockdown, but for others it's been a worrying time, a difficult time, a time dealing with illness, dealing with bereavement, dealing with so many other things. For them it's been a dark valley. And we have to remember that. But when we think of the New Testament teaching, we realise that, particularly in, say, the letters of James or Peter, that there are trials that produce perseverance and maturity. That's the teaching of James. And in Peter's letters, he talks about being refined by fire and the building blocks of character. That is a process of us coming to be all that we can be in life. And particularly in faith as well. And God is in these processes, helping us to mature and to develop. So the theme of grow through what you go through is very biblical indeed. Now, we have to remind ourselves that there's not always happy endings, not least on this side of the Great Divide anyway. It's not always a Hollywood movie life. It can be very sad and very difficult for many folk. And the Christian hope is an ultimate hope. We're preparing for eternity, but we live in time. And because we live in time, there are difficulties and trials and tribulations that we often have to face. And in some cases, it's very difficult to see any glimmer of hope in that, because it can be quite horrendous. But remember this, as I said, the hope is ultimate. It's an eternity that we're promised. But in time, there can be the difficulties. But during these difficulties, we must see the bigger picture and indeed trust God. Corrie ten Boom, the Dutch survivor of Ravensbrück concentration camp, and there weren't many people who survived Ravensbrück, but she did. She said, "There is no pit so deep that God is not deeper still. Now she can say that because she went through it. There was very few pits deeper than a Nazi concentration camp. So that maybe should be a challenge to us all and an encouragement as well. That whatever we go through, let's just trust the Good Shepherd, knowing that our hope is an ultimate one. But in the time sphere that we live in, there can be the bumps and the bruises, the knocks, the downfalls, the difficulties. But we need to learn to trust God in the midst of that. So thinking of that sunflower and the poster and the saying, grow through what you go through. That's a challenging message for you and me at this time. Let's learn what we can on this pilgrimage of life, and let's become what we can through God's grace in the midst of this life. Thank you for listening. God be with you, and I'll see you tomorrow.